So thanks everyone for coming, and we'll be short and sweet here. Last night, after a 5-hour closed session meeting with City Council, City Council unanimously decided to reject the offer by CN. It was dated June 15th and went public. I think I can say that every councillor was on the same page, that we don't want to burden the citizens of Thunder Bay, the taxpayers, with the cost of repairs to this bridge. That's CN's responsibility. We notified CN this morning of that decision, and we also notified Fort Wayne First Nation of that decision as well. This is now a legal file. However, we are open to suggestions by CN to move this forward if possible.
So the proposition that they came to was they were going to pay 50% up to an amount of 1.5 million. Is that correct?
Correct. Yeah, but there are conditions attached to that as well. And that was to negate, just delete the 1906 agreement with the City of Thunder Bay. And that also was unanimously rejected by City.
So I guess that's the question, did you reject it because of the cost and you want them to pay 100%? Or is it because of this deal would have required you to replace the 1906 agreement with a new agreement?
It's a combination of everything. It's liability issues as well. We would have been on the hook for liability issues on that bridge. And we maintain and get good legal advice that it's CN's bridge. And I want to reiterate that, and we've said that all along. CN owns a bridge, CN operates a bridge, and whether vehicular and pedestrian traffic traverse that bridge is entirely up to CN in accordance with the 1906 agreement that we feel they're not living up to.
Keith, are you not concerned that the city's going to end up paying more than this in legal fees than it would be to actually pay for their share of the bridge?
Well, we're going to be looking at that. Part of the discussions last night were to look at the 1905 agreement as well, and how CN Rail traverses our city, and we want to do an in-depth study internally with our internal legal counsel on those issues as well, and see where we stand, see where CN stand on that. So there's a lot more work to do.
Yeah, if I could just add, that was an important discussion council had, was to look back at what was really an enabling agreement for CN, and the bridge actually came out of a 1905 agreement, but the 1905 agreement was broader than just the bridge. It dealt with access to city roads, there was tax relief, there was, I think, $330,000 contribution up front. So we and council asked us to look at that. That's going to take some time. And the other thing I think the mayor can certainly convey is that we're as frustrated with the fact that this isn't able to move forward quickly. But I would just reiterate, we don't own this bridge. We don't have the ability to open this bridge. That's CN's responsibility. So we've tried to work it through. We're not at a point, I think, where right now we see that we can negotiate this because of their clear intent and want to get out of the 1906 agreement.
Just one other point. I want to bring back to September 3rd of 2011. I asked the city manager for an audit on all city bridges, including the CN bridge, and that was after the Minneapolis disaster. That was less than a year into my term. I thought that we needed to do that, due diligence, and we did meet with CN after that. Last year, prior to the fire, we asked CN for an independent survey, or at least be part of a study to look at the safety of that bridge, and we're still waiting for a reply from them on that. So we've done our due diligence prior to the fire as well.
And, when you say legal file, that means that this bridge probably isn't going to be reopened to people for quite some time now. Is that a concern?
You're looking at weeks and months possibly before this bridge will be open. And you know what? We knew that going in, that this has been a hard process. It's been hard on both communities. I mean, after all, people from Thunder Bay go over, they bring their kids to hockey games over there. We have taxpayers in Thunder Bay that work in the sawmill and the elevator, in other business and industries over on Fort Wayne First Nation. Fort Wayne First Nation buy all their groceries, furniture, vehicles in Thunder Bay. So, when people are saying Fort Wayne First Nation stand to gain, the city of Thunder Bay is losing or gaining just as much.
I think the other thing that's important here is that, people question the bridge bridge engaged. But at the end of the day, it's a contract that a company has with the city to maintain a bridge in perpetuity. And they don't get to decide when perpetuity is without having a discussion in a way, I think, that, compensates the municipality adequately. So, this is about a broader discussion about how, the city expects to do business and working certainly with, companies that have a long history in the community. So, we're in a position, I think, where we want to pursue our options, look at them further, and, the reality of it is it's going to take some time.
So what are those options? Where do you go from here, though?
Well, I'm not going to talk legal options, but they're mostly legal options. It doesn't preclude sitting down with CN at any time, and I've had discussions certainly with the VP, Mr. Shoup, this morning, and he said that they're always willing to talk. But the reality of it is, this is with our city solicitor now, and there's a number of legal options.
And where's the city at so far in terms of legal fees? I mean, you brought in these guys who are experts in dealing with bridges and CN in particular.
We don't talk about our legal fees. That's part of really the fact that we don't want to be in a position to tell others how much we're spending to defend ourselves or initiate. But we've got the money in place. Obviously, legal is an area that we've identified as a challenge, in our budget. But we will put in place, and I think it's important to understand too, is that if this goes to full legal challenge, it may very well be a discussion early in the new term of the next council, because by the time we get to that position, I think we're looking at that. So, and it's fair for the new council, because I think the reality of it is one council cannot sort of burden another council with financial commitment. So, at the end of the day, go back to the mayor's comment, this is going to take some time. We're frustrated. We don't control when this bridge gets open. That's not our decision. We can't open that bridge and start using it because we don't own it.
What would the financial contribution have been? The city would. What was the city's financial contribution?
Well, so they, CN, I think in their offer kind of alluded to our counter offer, and one of the things I said to CN was, notwithstanding the fact that this hasn't been fairly public, we didn't share our counter offer with the media. They chose to share their offer. What we identified was that the option that they put forward, we would be willing to look at our land, our roads, because you have to realign the roads to utilize that center corridor, but obviously that's off the table now.
Is it safe to say, though, the city on this file has spent more than 1.5 million so far?
No, absolutely not.
Not even close.
But so my question is, I believe, Mayor Hobbs, you had talked before about being willing to talk about, I mean, you did say before that it is CN's bridge and that they're responsible for paying the price, but you would be willing to pay some, you would be willing to, I think, consider paying some costs. So is that not the case anymore?
Well, we were looking at possible cost sharing in certain ways, and I even brought up the fact that maybe Fort Line First Nation could contribute to that. But this whole thing boils down to what's right and what's wrong, and CN's responsibility. And I totally believe, and I've said it before, that they're shirking their responsibility. That they have a responsibility and a legal obligation to open this bridge to traffic, and they haven't done that.
And
they're saying this could be weeks or months, but it says in here it's going to take months to even do this background check. I mean, is it fair to say that it's going to be a couple weeks and we might have some movement here? This looks like it could drag on for a year or more.
It could drag on for a long time. I'm going to be quite honest about that, and that's not good for either community, for sure. We did talk to the Vice President of CN this morning, and he said he would be open to further discussions. Now, how they might look, I don't know. And that's something our legal department will sift through. We had a number of options last night that were presented to us, and I was actually quite surprised how many people want to push this forward to legal.
If I could just comment, I think, again, it goes back to the fundamental difference here is CN's desire to get out of the agreement. And that's at the heart of it.
so to get out of which agreement?
1906 agreement.
With Fort Wayne First Nation?
No, at the city. It's an agreement between the city and Fort Wayne First Nation, and CN that provides for unrestricted vehicular access across that bridge. That was paid for back in 1905 by the city. They made a $50,000 contribution at that time to have that right, and we've had that right. CN's view is that right no longer exists.
Who was spoken to at Fort William First Nation, and can you give us an idea of what their reaction to this was?
Well, I spoke to the chief this morning by phone and advised her of what council decided, and she wasn't surprised with that at all. And I told her it was a majority vote. Every single councillor, I mean, a unanimous vote, every single councillor voted to reject this offer, which to my mind is a good thing. You know, we've been on side on a lot of issues as this council, and this is one that we're all on side with, and makes me very happy.
Given that it's now a legal file, is it safe to say this is the last we'll be hearing from you guys on this for a while?
Not necessarily. You know, I mean, we're still going to push CN to get that bridge open. I don't think that we should cease doing that. That's due diligence and that's negotiations. I've said before, and I was a negotiator for a lot of years. I don't like going to arbitration or to court to settle issues. As long as they're talking with us, there's hope. But it's faint right now.
I could have this wrong, but I'm looking at the letter that CN sent to you last week, and it did outline one option that would be paying 100% of the short-term solution and then to litigate over the 1906 agreement. Was that option even under discussion?
Well, I mean, I take that as CN saying, basically, go ahead and sue us, but you go ahead and pay for it and, you know, recover the costs as a result of the lawsuit. So, you know, I find it interesting because they kept repeating that do you not think that we would consider the fact that, you know, that option's on the table? You don't have to remind us, right? So, you know, it is what it is. I mean, you know, we make our decisions, we go to council, and council gave direction.
So I just want to make sure I have it clear though. So they were going to pay
That was
100% and then go to
No,
litigation.
they
They
wanted
would
us to
recover
pay
that.
100%.
Okay, all right. So
But
that
it
was
was
just
go
kind of
ahead, go ahead and sue us.
right.
How much of this is, you know, you mentioned it's a matter of right and wrong, but this isn't a two-bit operation, this is a multinational corporation. Or how concerning is it, I mean, that the deeper pockets might win out in this situation?
Well, it depends, and again, I think the next term of council is going to make this decision how far we push this. But I mean, we took another big corporation to the wall on NPAC, and you know, we're not going to back down from big corporations just because they have deep pockets and they're going to try and bully a municipality. CN has got a reputation of doing this across the country, and we're no different than any municipality. We're going to fight back when we're pushed against the wall.
How much of this is a statement of solidarity with Fort William First Nation?
I think it's a really good statement. We talked about declaration of commitment that we signed in 2011, and they are our business partners. We worked on the mining readiness strategy, and their lands are as important to them as us with that strategy. And you know, there could be opportunities for mining operations on Fort William First Nation. There are business opportunities. We see the rink over there. We have hockey moms and dads that go over there every day. People that work in the sawmill. So their community is very important to us, as their community is to our business people in Westford and in the city of Thunder Bay. Our shops are full from their residents. They buy their vehicles, they buy their furniture, they buy their groceries in Thunder Bay. So this bridge is more than just for our people to go over and get gas. You know, that's what I've heard most, I think, out of this whole thing. You know, why you keep the bridge open just so people can go and get gas. It's way more than that. The tourism piece, Chippewa Park, Mount McKay. It's a big tourism piece for Thunder Bay.
Well, there's also the safety piece that's come up recently about the highway access, having to take that detour, and a lot of people have been talking about that, and both in Fort William First Nation and in Thunder Bay. What would you say to those people who have been saying that's an accident waiting to happen?
Well, that's something that was an option that was brought forward last night, and you know, we're going to have to get used to the fact that that is the only access and egress from Fort William First Nation. So we're going to have to look at that intersection. For sure, it is a provincial intersection, but we're going to have to get on it as a municipality as well.
Yeah, you will pressure MTO, Bill Morrow, and the likes to put some.
Definitely, that's a must. I mean, we have been doing that already, but I think now that it's looking like, at least for a year, as you say, that this is going to be the access to Fort William First Nation. We're going to have to really address that and address the roads going into Fort William First
You know, Keith, for a long time, we heard that safety was the main priority of getting this bridge reopened, but now the conversation's kind of shifted to, it's a matter of sort of right and wrong getting that 1906 agreement. I guess what sort of changed in the,
Well,
in
no,
the tone?
I mean, it's not, it's always been about, is that bridge safe? We can't even find out whether that bridge is safe. We've taken their word on their report. We can't even get an independent review of that bridge. We can't get our engineers to even have a look at that bridge. They haven't allowed us to do that. So we don't even know what they're telling us is true.
So we made an offer to CN that we would work with them to do an independent review so that we could understand. We're still waiting to hear back, but that offer is always on the table. We're happy to work with CN to review the travel portions, the two cantilever portions, to do our, to be part of an assessment. Because the reality of it is, and I think this is one of, we've had ongoing discussions with Portland First Nation. Their preference is to restore to what they have, but they accept the fact that maybe there needs to be some load restrictions or limitations, whatever. But we're not even getting to that point. We're really just dealing with the fact that the option on the table is the shared center corridor with the rail, which then results in a whole bunch of costs. It's limited access, and the city assumes all the liability, and again, the 1906 agreement is no longer in place.
Are there
If CN
other
were
options
prepared-
rather than driving down the center of the bridge?
Really, there's the two, is maintain the two cantilevered lanes on the outside, which were originally built for that, with some feasible, engineering solution to rehabilitate it, whatever. But again, we don't have access to the information to understand what that required. The only other option would be to do perhaps some type of a combination, or use one or that. But what Fort Wayne First Nation want, again, is unimpeded access. And I think our community, obviously they want to drive and continue driving like they had. But to your point, Dennis, the options are pretty limited because you have a center corridor and you have two on either side.
CN is saying that there's a, sorry, Mayor.
There is a long-term solution as well, and that would be a new vehicular and pedestrian bridge, which would probably cost $25 to $30 million. So, I mean, we're going to always explore that option, but I would want the federal government to probably pay for that, and we'd have to work closely with Fort Wayne First Nation. But that is that has always been one of the long-term goals, and we discussed this when Chief Collins was the chief of Fort Wayne First Nation.
If CN had agreed to pay the full cost, would you be willing to accept their proposal that you share the rail deck? They say that's the only safe option. Was that, or was that also?
I go back to what I said, the key condition is the 1906 agreement. And where are we with that? So,
How do you see the relationship with Fort William moving ahead? Is this now a city of Thunder Bay file rather than you guys were meeting at the same time previously, and now if you're looking at legal matters?
You know what, it's always been a Thunder Bay file because the agreement was between Thunder Bay and CN. It wasn't with Fort Wayne First Nation and CN or Fort Wayne First Nation and the city of Thunder Bay. And they recognize that, they're a party to this because they're affected by it, very adversely affected by it. But when it comes down to any decisions by council, the chief was quite aware. We kept her apprised, and she appreciates that it's our file.
So fair to say it's going to be, you had mentioned a year before, and you've also mentioned it obviously being an issue that the new council, the new term will take over, so.
Well, unless CN does a complete about face, it's going to be a long, protracted time period. But you know what? We're going to keep pushing CN in the meantime. We have to.
and I think my point about the new council was, I think this issue is going to obviously transcend into the new council. And that'll be a discussion we continue to have. The city solicitor now is, responsible for going back and looking at all the legal options.
Where's the province in all this?
It's Ontario.
Yeah.
Well, the discussions we've had with them primarily have been on the Highway 61, the interconnection there. They did their counts, they did their traffic studies, they take the view that current configuration is adequate, but I think the mayor said, we are going to if this is going to take some extended period, we're going to renew that discussion with them and convey to them that, you know, this is the only access now into the community.
And we've also brought this to the federal level as well. I met with Minister Belcourt from Aboriginal Affairs when he was in Thunder Bay and discussed this topic, and nothing came of that as well. This is used to be a government corporation, but it's now private. CN owns that bridge, plain and simple.
What do you want to see happen with the Highway 61 access?
Just made safe, and you know, there's probably going to have to be an education piece as well there. We have to work with the OPP on that. That's a provincial highway. It's not governed by the city. But you know, I mean, our citizens drive it every day. I've seen some near misses there as well. I predicted that there will be a fatality there if we don't get on the issue. You know, people have to realize it's a dangerous intersection, especially when they're turning left, you know, onto to head to Fort Wayne First Nation. That's where I've seen some scary close calls already, and I've had a lot reported to me as well. So, you know, drivers are going to have to be educated on what the dangers are there. We've got traffic traveling at 90 to 100 kilometers an hour, and people just don't realize how fast that is when they're turning left.
Okay?
So you mentioned you're going to litigation, so I just want to be clear, so the next step, will you tell us, or sorry, that's maybe a possibility, so will you tell us if the city, it sounds like the city would have to file suit.
To the extent that that's public, absolutely. But there's different options under litigation.
What's, from the EMS side for responding to calls, it seems to be taking, you know, it's an extra 10 to 15 minutes depending on traffic. What's that saying about CN's attitude?
Well, I've said that, and I've been quite blunt about that. They're not a good corporate citizen, and they haven't been throughout this. You know, they have an agreement. Our lawyers are quite clear. We have Toronto lawyers, we have local lawyers that are saying that it's their duty to maintain and open that bridge. We've thrown that at them. We've told them about those dangers, and it's fallen on deaf ears. So you make your own judgment on that.
Thank you.
Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you for coming. Short notice.